It's time to turn down the noise and tune in to News You Can Use, the show that gives you a quick insight into the latest twists and turns in healthcare news, where every diagnosis comes with an order of side-splitting humor. Your hosts are Dr. Nick, a longtime host, innovator, and healthcare wizard who can prescribe a digital dose of innovation to cure even the most ailing operational inefficiencies. And Dr. Craig Joseph, the healthcare guru who can diagnose both patient and software glitches with equal precision, making sure hospitals run smoother than a well-oiled robot doc. So buckle up, because we're diving into the ER of excitement, the ICU of irrationality, and the waiting room of wacky wisdom. Now here's Dr. Nick and Dr. Craig.
Welcome to the month of June. I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.
This week, we'll be dissecting the latest healthcare news, unraveling the twists and turns, and making sense of the debacles.
Just remember, life's a lot like a breaking news story. Unpredictable, often absurd, and occasionally leaving you wondering if it's all just a cosmic prank.
This week, we take a look at OpenAI's publication of some science, ERs that turn patients away.
And we also dive into ACA enrollment, ECG automated analysis, and a curious case of the bomb squad being called to the emergency department.
But first off this week, we have the American Diabetes Association and their published article, Kerfuffle. So, can you tell us, Craig, what that was all about? Do you know the background?
I know some of it. I feel like you might know more of it. The American Diabetes Association, which I believe is an association in America that tries to help people with diabetes.
Right.
Yeah, and it's got multiple.
So far, you're right. This is unusual, but keep going.
I know, but I feel like I'm on a roll, so you should let me keep going.
Yes.
Yeah, don't keep interrupting me.
I'm sorry.
See, you just did it again.
Yeah, it's a habit.
How long can we do this? The ADA.
Oh my God! Wait. It's got to be one of those games from that comedy show that I love.
We can keep going. The ADA has a kind of a scientific arm where they're actually focused on science and trying to move it along so that people with diabetes can get better care, of course. And there was an article, so they have a journal. It's a scholarly research academic journal, and they had published an editorial there about certain topics, and one of them was the government funding for various research. And it was an editorial, so it had an opinion, but it was published in their journal. And at their conference, apparently the people that wrote that journal editorial were handing out copies to people, and that's all that happened, and nothing else happened.
Dun.
And that's the end of the story. I believe, Nick.
I think not.
Oh, did something else happen after?
Oh,
that?
yes. So I absolutely right. Published articles, handing them out, and then suddenly there is a kerfuffle, as we like to say in England. And those folks that were distributing this article, which was, essentially critical of some of the funding changes that have taken place as a result of the administration's moves, were essentially approached and told, you're not allowed to distribute this, and were ultimately essentially kicked out, I believe.
They were. They had to give back their credentials to the meeting that they had paid to attend.
Yeah, paid to attend, right.
For handing out. And again, I want to emphasize, like, this was not just, hey, I wrote up this thought piece.
Yes, right.
And I'm handing it out. This was from the journal that this organization that was hosting this meeting had published. And so it was a bit odd.
Odd is, I think, something of a, how can I put it, generous? I mean, that's just, it's bizarre is perhaps more appropriate. But come on, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, this is just ridiculous. And whoever you thought you were placating, did you think about all the other folks that you weren't placating? anyway, I just silliness. But we're full of silliness, unfortunately. Moving on, sadly,
before we move on, I just want to say one thing. I believe this is an original thought. And so you might want to write this down.
If I had sound effects, I'd use them right now, but I don't.
If Dr. Nick, you don't want something to be publicized or to go to a large audience, I think they call it the Streisand Effect. So maybe this is not original. Maybe this is not original thought. It's if you're interested in not publicizing something, probably not making a big deal of it. Would have been a better thing, because I think most of us would agree that if you would have just let these people pass out this article that appeared in the journal, we would not be talking about this right now, because no one would know anything about it, because it would have reached dozens and dozens of people. Instead, now it's reached millions. This story,
it has. It's definitely causing. It's now. I mean, the news cycle has moved. Another 2 days forward, so nobody remembers it anymore. But yes, I think I even read up about the Streisand effect, and of course it was Barbara Streisand who drew attention to something. I think that's what I recall. But anyway, that's
exactly what happened. She drew attention to something that was probably not going to get a lot of attention.
And this was before social media. It only gets worse with social media, because boy, do people pile on.
And while the media did cover this and has moved on, you and I have not.
No. Well, speak for yourself. I think I might have done, but
all right, we'll move on after this. Podcast.
I think we definitely should move on. ACA enrollment is down. I think the stats suggest that whilst we were up at 24 million or so. Last year, figures showed just slightly over 19 million. That's problematic, unless we're missing a bunch of people who are getting insurance elsewhere, do you think? Or we've got so many people employed that they're getting insurance through employment? Is there some, it's not as bad as it sounds?
Well, it sounds pretty bad. Let's just make sure everyone knows what we're talking about when we say ACA. So we're also known as Obamacare.
Here we go. Yes.
All right. I just think that's a more common.
It is the term, but yes.
So a bunch of people that got health insurance, millions of people, 5 million people who had gotten health insurance, and this is private health insurance, of course. With some subsidies from the federal government because of how much money they made or for various other reasons. Those subsidies were stopped in a recent bill. And so now we're seeing, of course, I think it's not, I think the correlation doesn't always mean causation, but in this case, I think it's highly likely that the cause of this 5 million decrease is due to the lack of funding. And so it became too expensive for people. And so
that's right. The prices went up.
The prices went the insurance prices went up, but also for these folks, it went way up, more than average, because they were getting subsidies which are no longer there.
Triple digit percentage rises, I believe, if I recall. Certainly over 100 and some 200. I remember seeing.
And I think we've said it many times on this podcast, but it's probably not the case that people who lose their health insurance stop going to the hospital or emergency department for emergencies or for care, or they stop getting sick. Let me even put it that way. They're still sick.
In a perfect segue, this is unique to our show. Let's be clear. Since you're talking about accessing emergency care, why is it that these folks who are no longer insured end up at the emergency room? That is because of the appropriately called EMTALA, which is emergency. I can't remember what it stands for, I'm sure. But essentially, that is the requirement for U.S. hospitals to treat anybody and everybody, irrespective of their ability to pay. Now, you can treat them.
Nick, I have to stop you. First of all, you said EMTALA weirdly with this weird accent of yours that it's hard for me.
Know.
I have to be honest. Like, I have a little translator app right here that helps me understand what you're saying.
You said that didn't work for the Scots.
However, EMTALA doesn't require them to treat patients who come into the emergency department. It requires them to stabilize.
I'm sorry. Yes.
To the emergency department. They have to be stable. They have
to
stabilize.
I was getting there because I said, as I was getting to, they treat, but then they can discharge. They don't have to fix ultimately, which is what a lot of this, and they can't charge for it. But this brings us to this unique emergency room group that are able to turn patients away, which I have to say was a bit of a shocker to me. It's this company called Nutex Health, based in Houston, apparently, and they are just taking cash-paying patients. You show up, they'll tell you this is how much they want, and it's an awful lot, and if you can't pay it, bye-bye. Which I found surprising, but apparently it's not to you.
No, it was surprising to me because I was under the impression that EMTALA, and like you, that's a law that I don't know what EMTALA stands for, but I do know that it was written because emergency departments were turning patients away who didn't have insurance or who couldn't pay prior to their treatment. But what I didn't understand, and I think a lot of people didn't understand, is that this is not a law that applies to all emergency rooms. This is a law that applies to all emergency rooms and hospitals who participate with Medicare. And you and I and many, many, many others kind of foolishly thought that that was all the hospitals. How could you not participate with Medicare? It's not required. You can open up a doctor's office and say, I don't take Medicare, I don't take Medicaid, I don't take Blue Cross. You do whatever you want to do.
Increasing numbers of folks are doing that, sadly, but understandably.
So it sounds like, based on this article, these folks have said, well, we don't participate with Medicare. And so we are under no such legal obligation to stabilize patients who present to us. Now, they do say, I think, that they voluntarily screen all patients, and which they're not required to do, they say, to ensure they're not dying. I don't know what that means. They call 911 and take you to another emergency department.
That seemed. I mean, there was a case of somebody that was showing signs of classical signs, is what it was described as of a heart attack, but they couldn't pay up front, so they were turned away.
Yeah, it's not. It's
a bad look.
It doesn't seem like a good look. It may be legal. We're not lawyers. Yes. It may be legal. It sounds like it's legal, but it's not a great look. And I think once people kind of understand what that means, then they'll avoid these folks unless they are very confident that what they have is not really an emergency. But if it's not really an emergency, then why are you going to the emergency room?
Well, and I would say that where there's bad behavior, there's typically more bad behavior. And based on what I was reading, it sounds like there's a little bit more of that going on with what I can only describe as misuse of the No Surprises Act that is in heavy use currently. And there's a lot of discussion and pushback on this idea that this arbitration process should make sure that the physician practices are getting paid, but people are, once again, they've found that this is a great way to squeeze more money out of the system inappropriately. It was, the intentions were good, and they're using this arbitration process to essentially increase charges way beyond anything that's expected. But unfortunately, that will be a topic for another show, another time. But, I agree.
It is very confusing to put out a sign that says emergency room. And for folks, again, I was just like, well, if I had done my research ahead of time and known that if I have chest pain, I shouldn't go to this emergency. But the vast majority of us, A, cannot do that. And B, even if we did it in an emergency, you're generally not thinking very clearly, and you're looking to get to the closest emergency room. And this is not going to be. This is
and I think, to be clear, that act does not apply to urgent care centers. They're not covered under that metric or
I
whatever.
believe you're correct.
So you would know, I don't go to that if I really, I'm in trouble and I expect to be treated no matter what. But well, on a lighter, brighter note, I don't know about you from your time in medical school and whatever, but I remember ECGs, and I have to say they were fascinating to me because they were electrical and we were sort of measuring, and it was directional, and they truly they were interesting from a scientific engineering standpoint. But my God, they could be incredibly difficult to read. Not least of all because they were quite difficult to get clean. There was an awful lot of noise. I will say that I did win an ECG competition as a medical student. I did win it.
Was there a cash prize? Like what?
The prize was a book on ECG analysis, and I won this. But it came with a note that said, "We felt you needed it more than anybody else." So
hashtag
maybe
winning.
It wasn't the win I should be proud of, but I did enjoy reading the book, and I learned a lot about it. But still problematic now, automated reads. But new information, new study, and I've seen a fair amount of coverage on this that says you can actually analyze these things, and we can get to predictive data that is, I'm going to say, invisible. It's just not visible to the human eye, perhaps. And some of the automated tools are saying, hey, we can see things that are happening weeks, months, I don't even know the time frame beforehand. I think pretty exciting.
It's amazing. And the concept here is that there are data hiding that we can't see with the human eye. And but that an AI can make out patterns and then look for those patterns in this data. And so the example from the New York Times article that you're referencing was a patient who came in and said he was having a hard time breathing and was coughing, maybe coughed up some blood, and had been near a fire, had been near smoke. So it made sense that this was a lung problem. And they did an ECG just to be on the safe side, and the ECG showed some abnormalities, but nothing concerning enough to admit the patient. However, they had been where the patient had gone to, they were doing a study, and the data from the ECG, or it used to be called EKG, it probably still is, went and was analyzed by an AI.
Well, at least in this country anyway, but go on.
There you go. And the AI said, oh, hang on a second. This seems very abnormal. And even to an expert cardiologist, it wasn't abnormal, or wasn't
Echo Next abnormal. Is the name of the company, if anybody's interested.
Yeah. And so they called the patient back days after they had sent him home and said, hey, you need to come in right now for an echo. And the echo showed just horrible dysfunction. And he was admitted and I think had surgery to help him. And so I think I'll tell you what my take-home message from this is, that the data that we're collecting, that you might be collecting now, that every day through your phone or through other your smartwatch, your sleep or your exercise, smart equipment, it might benefit you 2 years from now when someone develops an algorithm or an AI that can look at this just gobs and gobs of data and come up with things that you couldn't see. And so I tell you this, I'm doing sleep tracking now. And what that means is I'm wearing my Apple Watch at night.
Oh, interesting.
I'm wearing it sounds much more impressive to tell you that I'm aggressively sleep tracking, but really I'm just wearing this watch at night.
I have been for years. I find it fascinating, but it doesn't obsess me. I have
to
say.
And it doesn't
problems.
It's one of those things I don't even know what to do with this information. It's like, you slept well last night. Congratulations. All right. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, right. And they give you a score, which
I get a score, but it also, it yells at me, I guess, if I didn't go to bed early enough. Anyway, I don't find it super helpful now, I have to say. But I think that data, which is getting stored somewhere on my phone or in my iCloud account, might be cool and useful in the future. And so that's really my incentive for kind of doing it now. Not so much that's going to help me now, but it might help me in the future when an algorithm like this says, "Hey, let me have at it and see what I can come up with."
As long as it doesn't, get you too much navel gazing and gets you all wound up into a thing, because that's one of the downsides of this that I see, and I've seen specifically with some individuals where they do. But no, you're right. The ability, and look at all that data that we're accruing. The only industry that accrues more data than healthcare rate of accrual is astrophysics, otherwise, or astronomy, astrophysics. That's all, potentially mineable with all of this, which is, interesting and certainly exciting. So very cool. OpenAI published a paper that was in Nature, which is peer-reviewed, to be clear, and they claimed that they were essentially better than OpenEvidence's results. And there was a lot of coverage. I saw a lot of people talking about this online, and what I found really interesting was a very strong pushback on the part of OpenEvidence that has risen to the level of requesting a retraction of the paper, which I find kind of interesting. But, to be clear, you've got lots of people using this tool. We've talked about this before. OpenEvidence has, really, I think, taken the market, and, they're saying that this wasn't quite as clear-cut or as appropriate from, model contamination. There was bias in, some of the content. It's just very and most disappointing. I typically go, if it's peer reviewed, I feel, reasonably safe, but now I don't.
Yeah, well, plus this was Nature, which is an international, very well respected journal. OpenEvidence, which is a company that put together an AI that's just based only on scientific evidence, as opposed to OpenAI or ChatGPT, which is what they make, or Claude from Anthropic, right? Which is everything. And they, like you said, it's been wildfire for physicians using it and talking to it and asking it questions. And I don't feel like I'm sophisticated enough to say, oh yes, for sure, this is right and this is wrong. However, it did seem that OpenEvidence had some valid points.
No, they sure did.
They had some valid points.
When somebody said, "Look here," I went, "Oh yeah," which is just evidence of my lacking of looking, I guess.
Yeah, and they'd also, they're saying that some of the authors had financial. Hey, those people wanted us to buy something from them, and we didn't, and now they're sore at us. And so it's a sticky situation. It's a pretty
sordid story, right?
It is. It's not clear cut that these that these general models are better.
Takeaway point: even if it's published in a very reputable journal, we need a dose of salt with everything to make sure that we assess things as deeply as we possibly can.
Indeed.
All right. Well, wrapping up. It seemed only appropriate, courtesy of Mr. Histalk, who drew my eyes to this, because it did remind me of my time in the emergency room in a particular hospital that had a lot of these problems. It was the bomb disposal unit that was called to a French hospital, which and in fairness, Mr. Histalk does not use clickbait, but that was very clickbaity for me. I was definitely wanting to look to see, wait, what? Would you like to explain?
No. A World War II? Was it First World War?
First World War, yeah, it was World War One.
Artillery shell.
Yes, was discovered in a man's rectum. He came in complaining of, I don't know whether it was pain, but certainly discomfort. And in an unusual circumstance, certainly based on my clinical experience, he didn't try and conceal how it got up there.
Yes.
It was placed up there.
Yes.
One has to wonder why one would pick this particular item, but as a result of that, they had to bring the bomb disposal in, because this thing, I don't even know, we never got to the end of the story, which was, was it live? Did it have to go to the range to be blown up and so forth? But, those things are notoriously unstable. Why? There are so many other objects you could pick, but...
The article says they dated it to 1918.
1918.
1918.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago. So I think it might be unstable. Yeah, they had to clear a whole floor in case
I've never been in a hospital where we had to have a bomb alert and whatever, but I've not worked in places where that would typically occur, but it certainly made me smile. It brought back a lot of memories, I'm just going to say. some very humorous and happy times in primarily actually it was all in the emergency room, in days before phones and days before social media, thankfully for me anyway. Unfortunately, we find ourselves at the end of yet another episode where we explored mostly healthcare's mysteries, certainly some pretty strange stories, let's be clear, before they became your emergencies. Until next time, I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.